It's time to play the waiting game in the Pentagon Challenge. Because after lifting the Asian Champions League with Kyoto Sanya, we have now won 2 out of the 5 Champions Leagues to complete the Pentagon Challenge. But there's only 2 jobs available in both North and South America, and both are in Mexico and don't look very appealing. So now we just sit back and wait for the new jobs to pop up. And 1 month later, a very interesting job came up. As in Brazil, Fluminense has just sacked their manager and Neymar is currently in charge as caretaker boss, while the club sits in the relegation zone. But actually, they've only played 12 games compared to the 16 and 17 with teams around them, and the prediction sees them in mid-table. So to me, this is an easy decision. I have to apply for this job. But straight after, Atletico Paranaense also sacked their manager, and they currently have Esteval playing for them. And it was them who came to us first to invite us for an interview. But the jobs kept coming in as Santos sacked their manager, and again, I have to apply. They are currently only mid-table as well. But it's interview time at Fluminense now. Interestingly though, Santos fans consider me the leading candidate before I've even interviewed. But finally that interview came, and I feel like this is currently the job I want the most out of the 3. And after delaying offers from both of the other clubs, Santos finally come back with an offer themselves, and I am happy to accept, taking the role as the new manager at Santos FC. There were definitely some recognisable faces in this Santos side, as well as a couple of hugely talented new gens. A bit of history for Santos FC: they've won the Copa Libertadores, the one that we're trying to win, 4 times in their history, including just 2 seasons previous. But it seems like a lot of that side was pulled apart soon after by the European clubs. In terms of the Santos side that I've adopted, I'm going to try and go for this kind of Christmas tree formation with a shadow striker and a trequartista, a halfback, because they have a very good player who I think is perfect for the halfback role. This guy's really good. He's only 20 years of age with a lot of potential, so putting him into that lineup as that halfback I think will be great for his development. I think in terms of what I need, we've got a very good left-sided centre-back here in Hernandez, who has pace to burn with 17 acceleration, so he's fine. We might need a right-sided centre-back, but that's not the end of it. I think we kind of need to look at these 2 positions here. We haven't really got an out-and-out shadow striker. We've got a player that can play there in Bombardier, who... yeah, he's okay. He's 30 years old. He's got that good finishing ability, but he doesn't play there naturally. So unless I can train him there. But there is some money to burn, so yeah, I guess I need to just go on the hunt a little bit. We started by loaning a player from Lazio, who's a 20-year-old Brazilian who could be a great player for us in those attacking positions. Unfortunately, he didn't have much effect in the first game though, as we lose to Atletico Mineiro 2-1. Our next game is in the Copa Sudamericana against Uruguayan side Nacional in the knockout stages. And remember, this is kind of like the Europa League of South America. We are needing to win the Copa Libertadores instead. But anyway, we smashed our way through to the next round. The following fixture is the real tester, as we have first place Vasco da Gama away from home. But they absolutely embarrass us 4-0. I need more firepower, and Victor Hugo can give us that. A fantastic attacking midfielder from Houston Dynamo for 5.8 million. Slotting alongside Rodrigo in what I think could be a deadly partnership. So let's see how we get on with the rest of this season, as well as in the Copa Sudamericana. Well, it seems we battered the Ecuadorian side Barcelona in the quarterfinals, then defeated Fluminense narrowly. Ironically, now facing the other Brazilian side we turned down to be at Santos in the final. But the final didn't start off as well as we liked, and within 5 minutes, Atletico caught us napping and took an early lead. Luckily, Rodrigo Muniz pulled us level from the penalty spot, and a ball played out wide 25 minutes into first half resulted in an unbelievable cross tapped in at the back post. And we lift the Copa Sudamericana for Santos. In the league though, after that loss from Vasco da Gama, we went on a great run and only lost 1 more remaining game and picked up 3 points majority of the time, ending the season in 6th place. However, I don't think I'm going to stay at Santos. I'll tell you why. Because on the job center, I noticed that the Flamengo job had popped up, and although they finished in 12th place last season, they have a much better transfer budget, phenomenal squad, and alright, some are aging, but there's some youngsters coming through as well. And diving into the squad some more, I actually think my system here at Santos would be better suited for this Flamengo side. They have the players I desire to play the system. So I made the decision to apply for the job and possibly make a switch in Brazil. But the Santos board made it clear that they wanted me to stay, whereas the Flamengo fans laughed off our interest. May I remind them that I just won a major trophy in 6 months of being in South America, and a whole month later they are finally in inviting us into an interview. But unfortunately, maybe for me and not for Santos, Flamengo turned me down and instead went with someone else managing currently in Argentina. But as much as I really wanted that job, I now need to just focus at the club I'm at. So I begin to sign new players such as Shabalala, a left back from South Africa, for just 500k, as well as bringing Sandri back to the club he grew up in, followed by Julian Dominguez, an Argentinian defensive midfielder with a lot of talent, another left back but a more attacking option named Ryan. Before more signings came through though, we had the group stage of the Copa Libertadores, and first to join us in Group E is Peñarol of Uruguay. Next is Universidad de Chile of, you guessed it, Chile. And finally, joining our group is Olimpia, the Paraguayan side. And that's a rather difficult group full of the biggest clubs across South America. In the youth academy, I promoted a Polish centre-back we had to the first team and actually intend on giving him some starting minutes at centre-back. But arguably the best bit of business was the future signing of Nicolas Dominguez from Nottingham Forest, who will be 34 when he joins us, but still a cracking player. Meanwhile, we are currently ripping through the Sao Paulo State Championship league table, winning all 12 games and topping the league table and going into the quarterfinals as favourites. No rest though, as it's Copa Libertadores time, and we travel to Chile taking all 3 points, followed by a 5-0 win against Olimpia at home, topped off with some fantastic goals. Worryingly, we draw to the Uruguayan side Peñarol after they equalise in the 92nd minute. Before the away leg, we've got the final of the state championship after overcoming Sao Paulo in the semi-final to face Palmeiras in the final across 2 legs. But after the first leg, our chances aren't looking great, and despite us taking a very early lead through Victor Hugo, we unfortunately couldn't capitalise and only mustered a 1-1 draw and lost on aggregate. It was thankfully a much better outcome in the away trip to Uruguay, as we came away with a fantastic performance and a 2-0 victory. And after 4 games, we're favourites to qualify, which is confirmed in the match against the Chilean opponents in the 5th round of the fixtures in a 3-0 win. We also kicked off the main Brazilian league, in which we picked up a solid result in the first game. So with the Copa Libertadores on a break until mid-July, I crack on with the Brazilian league fixtures. Sadly, in July, we lost our goalkeeper when Monterrey activated his release clause. We also received a bid for our halfback, Lumar, from Norwich, but we've offered him a contract to stay at the club, and thankfully, he decided to do so.
Nice.
Although we also lost Charles, our starting left back, but I've already brought in 2 replacements at the start of the season. As we approach the knockouts of the Copa Libertadores, we have been on a good run of form, not losing for a while, and that sees us sat in 2nd place. And that's in spite of us having horrendous injury problems at the minute with no striker. But in the Copa Libertadores, we played Club Almagro from Argentina and waltzed through the first leg with a 4-0 lead. The second leg was much closer of a game, but we still won and progressed. And we went straight into the quarterfinals against Brazilian champions Vasco da Gama, and after falling behind, we pulled it level to travel home with a second leg 1 apiece. And that is where our run come to an end, as Vasco da Gama defeat us 1-0, which is disappointing in terms of the Pentagon Challenge after being knocked out this season. But it means we can focus on the league this season, and we are still in the title race with the current holders of the Copa Libertadores, Internacional. And they defeated us in the game after the Vasco defeat 2-1 to take an advantage. But the final third of the season, we were deadly and gave up very little points. And while Vasco da Gama went on to lift the Copa Libertadores, we go on to lift the Brazilian title just ahead of Corinthians as International dropped off the pace. But as great as this team has been, there are some weaknesses, and the board have been very generous in backing us with a huge transfer budget. While I was pondering what transfers to make, I also realised I was rather underdressed for this stage of my career. Because as much as I want to go for the tracksuit manager look, we are past that now, and I think I need a really nice shirt while I'm here in Brazil. A white shirt with black trousers, a classy manager. I also been fancying a new style of facial hair, and it's time for the mustache, I think. Anyway, it's back to the transfers, and I've got to take into consideration players I'm promoting to the first team, such as Paulo Cesar, who is more than ready. Another player that might persuade me to sell someone else is Diego, who is a fantastic 20-year-old defensive midfielder. And my squad is looking incredibly saturated right now, and I need a bit of a clear out. One signing I knew I wanted to make, however, was bringing Kaiki back to Santos after leaving a long time ago in 2022. The other being a Brazilian right back called João Carlos, who is a bit of a squad player too, but to be fair, with our tactic we need really good attacking fullbacks. The Copa Libertadores groups have been drawn, and we have a much easier group this season. So let's see how we do this year as reigning champions of Brazil. Well, we smashed through our group, winning 5 games out of the 6 and comfortably progressing through to the knockouts. We also played in the FIFA Club World Cup and finished second in our group, which included 2 draws against Porto and Real Madrid. The quarterfinals was as far as we could get though, as unfortunately we lost to AC Milan. However, that was only on penalties though. It has meant that we've been a bit preoccupied and only played 12 league games, but we still found ourselves in 4th place before the knockouts of the Copa Libertadores. And we've been drawn against the Argentinian side, Independiente, who smashed us in the first leg 3-1. We started the second leg really well and Paulo Cesar scored within 5 minutes to make it 3-2 on aggregate, but our opponents caught us on the counter-attack, and before we knew it, we were 2 goals down again. It stayed that way until the second half when Paulo Cesar produced the goods for us, making it 4-3. But yet again, Independiente caught us sleeping and a ball over the top led to a 5-3 aggregate. We kept fighting to the very end and Rodrigo Muñoz pulled back one more, but the tie ended up 5-4 on aggregate and once again we were knocked out. Another season without a Copa Libertadores to add to our trophy cabinet and still no closer to completing the Pentagon challenge. So for the rest of our season, our focus turns to the league and we've got many games to catch up with. And without other competitions in the way, there was no stopping us and we stomped through our fixtures. With 1 game remaining, we were 1 point clear of Corinthians going into the final day for the title, with only Gremio to beat, who currently find themselves in 15th place. We got off to the worst start too when Gremio won a penalty after just 8 minutes, but Ivanildo made a huge save. And that's exactly what we needed to kick us into gear, and by half time we go in leading 1-0. Coming out just as strong in the second half, shutting Gremio attacks down and scoring a second to secure the win, which of course makes us the champions of Brazil once again. And I just need the lads to start taking the Copa Libertadores a little bit more seriously. This season left me with the question of what do I need to improve this side? And we only have £13 million in the transfer budget to spend. Job-wise, there's only really the Vasco da Gama role in South America, but we've dethroned them already and they fell off the pace. Attacking-wise, we've nearly had 100 goals between our main front three, so it's not like we aren't scoring enough. Worryingly, the club wants to build a new stadium though, which could mean some heavy debts. And our finances is already looking the worst they've ever been and added on to the debts the club already has. So I tried to sell one of the defensive midfielders, accepting a bid for 9.25 million. But he rejected all 3 clubs and opted to stay. Annoyingly, however, I'd already bought in his replacement, a young Uruguayan midfielder for a fraction of the cost, as well as a new goalkeeper for £6.4 million from Ecuador. But I did eventually sell Pinto for slightly less money to make it back up. My final signing was actually a striker who might see some game time now that Muniz is starting to get a little old. Our group has been drawn for the Copa Libertadores this season, and it's Boca Juniors, Oriente and Fluminense who join us in Group E. So once again, let's see how we do in the Copa Libertadores group stages. Well, we comfortably finished top, drawing both games to Boca Juniors but winning the other 4 fixtures, with the next round putting us up against Sporting Cristal of Peru. In the league, our performances hasn't been perfect, picking up 3 losses and 4 draws, dropping down to 4th place. First leg of the Copa Libertadores though was a close one as we went to Peru and got a 3-2 win. The second leg was not exactly close at all. The scorer William, by the way, was a youngster that I promoted mid-season and he's really hit the ground running. In the next round is Argentinian side Atletico Tucumán, and we gave ourselves a strong lead in the first leg, winning 4-1. We actually lost the second leg in Argentina, but we still progressed through 6-4 winners on aggregate, leaving us in the semi-finals against Internacional, who currently lead the Brazilian league. Not only that, but we actually have to play against them across 2 legs again the month before in the Brazilian Cup final, which we also made. And we unfortunately failed to win as Internacional was just too strong for us, and they go on to lift the Brazilian Cup, while it also looks like they're going to win the Brazilian league as they're 10 points clear of us now. However, in the Copa Libertadores first leg, it went a lot better for Santos fans because in front of our home crowd, we scored 2 goals in a victory topped off with an epic second goal. And we put ourselves into the Copa Libertadores final with an amazing 2-2 away draw in the second leg. And in the final, we go on to face Atletico Nacional from Colombia, who have won the Copa Libertadores themselves twice in their history. However, in the Brazilian league, Internacional just needed a result in their next match to be crowned Brazilian champions. And their next match was against us, which they did in our own backyard after a 1-1 draw. But our focus is kind of elsewhere, as it's the Copa Libertadores final and it's just 1 match, not 2-legged ties to lift the trophy. And of course, to get our hands on the third out of 5 trophies towards the Pentagon Challenge. We could have asked to be in a better position at the start either, as in 22 seconds Michael da Silva was tapping the ball in to open the scoring. He even doubled it after 18 minutes and we were flying. João Carlos picked up a third before half-time, and around the hour mark, left-back Shabalala smashed in a fourth, and in the most one-sided final yet, we scored a fifth to win emphatically, bringing glory back to this once incredible club with a lot of history, lifting the Copa Libertadores trophy, which also helps us, because that is trophy number 3 of 5 in our quest to complete the Pentagon Challenge.